Welcome to the Mom Life Unscripted podcast, the podcast show that normalizes the struggles of motherhood without being a Debbie Downer or using toxic positivity. Stick around for motherhood journeys from everyday mamas just like you, plus how we're navigating this wild ride we call motherhood. You might even come away with some tips you can use to survive and maybe even thrive. Society puts so much pressure on us to be the perfect mom when there's no such thing. This prevents so many of us from sharing our stories for fear of being mom shamed. As my favorite sociologist, Brene Brown, says, shame is the most powerful master emotion. It's the fear that we're not good enough. If we can share our story with someone who responds with empathy and understanding, shame can't survive. We're all in this together, Mama. Welcome back to Mom Life Unscripted. I'm so excited to have Kristi here with me today. We haven't met in real life, but we're like online friends. We're online buddies.
Yes, definitely.
And she has something really awesome she is going to talk about today, about how she's incorporating outdoor time with her family time and all the awesome benefits she's seeing from it. And she's actually the reason my family decided to start the 1,000 hours outside challenge. So can't wait for you to hear from Kristi. So do you want to kind of share a little bit about your motherhood journey so far?
Sure, yes. Thank you, Katie. I'm so excited to talk to you. We are
Yay.
online friends. It's so great to finally hear your voice.
I know.
Um, but I'm Kristi. We live in upstate New York in one of the snowiest areas of the United States. I have four kids. The oldest is 7, and then a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and then a 6-month-old. And so we do mainly live outside, so to speak. We spend most of our waking hours outside. We do the outside 1,000 hours outside challenge. We completed it in, I'm going to say maybe like 7 or 8 months this year. And that was after having a newborn baby, where we averaged between March and September about almost 6 hours outside per day.
That's amazing. That like truly and I just love that.
Yeah, you know what? It's our second year tracking our hours, but it is not our second year kind of having an outside adventure mentality. It's always kind of been something that I've prioritized for the kids. Before we lived in New York, we lived in Mississippi. And when my older two were babies, I made it a point to go out early in the morning, before it got too hot, and later in the afternoon, when the sun kind of went down a little bit, so that they would have exposure to daylight. Because I guess that's kind of always been a part of me. I don't think I've always been like an outside person, but I've always felt that being in the house all day is a little
Oh
constraining.
my gosh, I feel so cooped up. And I can tell you, I don't know if you suffered with postpartum depression, but I definitely did. And even just being outside in the sunlight, I know they like have studies around vitamin D and how it can help elevate your mood, but it makes a huge difference.
It definitely does. And so I noticed it when my now 5-year-old was in daycare, and there was no windows in his daycare room. And he was a
Oh,
a baby. I went
yeah.
back to work when he was, I'm gonna say, maybe like 5 or 6 months old, and there was no windows in the baby room. And they would take them outside occasionally. But once I saw that, I was like, okay, I have to make it a priority, when I pick him up from daycare, to take him outside, or bring him outside a little bit in the morning. And that kind of jump started it for me, because I'm like, this can't be good if we're inside all the time. Like, I noticed that on my own, and then started researching it, reading up on it, kind of living this lifestyle where I'm like, wait, no, we do feel a lot better if we are, exposed to
Mm-hmm.
sunlight.
And so I don't know, you said you did research on this. I know, okay, what you'll probably have more information on this, but there's a country, I want to say like Sweden or Finland or Norway or something where like they're outside all the time. Their babies are napping
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of immune benefits too, not just like your mood.
Absolutely. So I know it's in a lot of Nordic countries, and we've kind of taken that kind of principle. My oldest two went to a forest preschool. They went to school
I
outside,
love that. I love
and
that so much.
my 3-year-old went. We kind of did a program together, and I'm kind of exploring different options for her when she is in school, because it kind of, you could see the immediate benefits on your kids. And I find that my baby sleeps really well in a stroller outside, and it'll be cold here. It's pretty cold. It's the end of November where I live. We're actually, supposed to have a huge snowstorm tonight. But I try to get them out all the time, and I'll wrap up my baby in a fuzzy little suit, blankets, whatever. And he naps so well. Like, the most time I could get from him asleep is like when he's outside, and it seems insane. But I feel like my kids are healthier and happier. It's not a magical miracle like cure all.
Right,
They still
right.
get sick, but I do feel like there has to be some sort of, when they do get sick, they don't get sick for that long.
Yeah, and I need to find that study, and maybe if I find it, I'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, I know I remember reading about this and how they saw, their kids didn't get as sick. I mean, like you said, it's not a miracle, cure, or nobody ever gets sick, but it definitely helped. And I've noticed too, we were inside a lot last winter because I was like super pregnant and just not feeling well, like I don't know, struggling with, pregnancy woes. Um, so, and I noticed that we were just like a lot sicker. Like we were just a lot sicker. And my dad was saying, like, well, you live in a new house. So a lot of those new houses are sealed so much that's like trapping everything in, and like your allergies are, yeah. So definitely interesting. I'm going to try to find the study. But do you want to kind of talk about how, so we kind of talked about how you got there, but, um, what what benefits are you seeing? I know we kind of touched on that. And then also, how could somebody get started? Like maybe they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Or, what if the weather's not great? And I mean, where I'm in Louisiana, and I'm like, if she's going out in the snow, I've got no excuse.
Yeah. So basically, I think the easiest thing is to just go for it, and we my real journey with it started, when I moved to New York mid-COVID. I had 2 toddlers. Um, one was 3, one was 2, and I was 6 months pregnant with my now 3-year-old. And so we moved to New York, didn't know anybody in this part of New York. And, the weather here is pretty extreme. We still have 50-degree days in July, and
Oh, wow.
we, everything was closed, and our COVID experience was a lot different than I'd say other parts of the country. Like, things were still locked down here for like a full 2 years. You used to have to take your temperature before you entered a store. Or, there was a part where it was illegal to have more than 6 people in your house at a time. There you could be fined or sent to jail. Like really crazy things. But the population density up here is a lot different. So
Right.
I think we were at a different risk. So we were stuck at home for a really long time, and like our public spaces weren't open, our parks weren't open, and I just kind of started taking the kids outside and like, okay, like let's wake up, let's go eat our breakfast outside, let's go in the backyard, let's walk around the street, like go around. We live on a circle, let's walk around the circle, ride our bikes. And that kind of just kept us all from going insane, because it was
Yeah.
just me and them, and I feel like that's like the common story for like stay-at-home moms or work from home moms or anybody who is at home with their kids all the time. It's like it's you and them, and then like occasionally like your partner will come home, and like that's the only other adult you talk to. So
Yes.
it started out of necessity, from to not to help us not go totally insane when we were trapped inside, because our quarantine lasted, like I said, years. So
Right.
And then, we ventured out when things started to open. We'd go out to, different preserves and nature areas. And, we wound up linking up with a really great community of like-minded people that also live their life outdoors, so it's like kind of like you I had to find my own village in a way that I wasn't expecting, like I didn't know
Right.
that in the middle of the forest we would, link up with these people that would kind of build our community here, and shape our lifestyle, because if anybody, I said I prioritize like being outside earlier, but if anybody, prior knowing me now, if anybody from my past sees me, it's kind of shocking that like I'm this like outdoor person, prioritizing hiking or like prioritizing doing these like crazy stops where like we're seeking out these weird adventures because I wasn't that type of like hang out in the middle of the woods person, 5 years ago. But like here
Right.
I am now, and so it's like we kind of just fell into it. Um, so it's a weird thing, and but it's our life, and it's helped, I think, all of us from not only having that COVID slump or like postpartum slump, I've had two children since then, or even just like a winter slump, and I have like 7 months of gray skies, like, I think last year we didn't see the sun for, I think it was 8 weeks, like it
Oh
got
my
light out, but
gosh.
like we
Yeah.
didn't see the sun, and and there it's just like a really dreary place to live, um, in the winter. So you can't count on, vitamin D to lift your spirits, like, but being outside does do something definitely to
Yeah.
improve your mood.
That's awesome. And I love that you kind of mentioned finding your village, because as I'm doing all of these podcast guests, or as I'm having all of these guests on the podcast, that is like the one common thing that I see all the moms say, like, find your village, like find somebody who's like you. If you're you know, if you just have a bunch of kids and it's chaos like me, and Laura, Laura, we vibe really well because we're like, you know what, it's crazy, it's chaos. Y'all go play in the backyard,
Right,
and
right.
some moms are a little more structured than that, and that's totally fine. They need to find their village. So I think that's so important. Do you have any, I'm thinking, like, do you have any, I guess, tips or strategies for somebody who's looking to find people like that where they are? Like, where did you, was it just like going to parks? Did you join Facebook groups? How could they kind of try to build their village wherever they are?
So I have the benefit of having incredibly extroverted children. And I always joke with my
I
husband, like,
feel
a lot of, he and I are kind of introverted. We wouldn't have a lot of friends if it weren't for our kids, who just are like really, really, really social. No. But it is a combination of, getting your kids out to play, saying, kind of like giving them a nudge, like, hey, go see if this kid wants to play. And then it's like, okay, well, what is stopping me from, asking the mom if she wants to play? Like, hey, like, introduce yourself, get out there, and not like, don't be afraid of like failure in a way, because I know that I feel like I am very awkward and weird and I have these really niche interests, but like most other people do too, And I
Mhm.
think that's something that stops us, is like fear of rejection. And, there were a few times where like I had tried to strike up conversation with people or grab somebody's number, and it didn't work out. And it's like, okay, but that's okay. That's okay, because there's other people out there. You could still find your people, because you'll know they're your people because you won't have to try anymore, And
Exactly. Yeah, I
so
love that.
yeah. So I mean, check on like Facebook events, social media, double-edged sword, but definitely a great way to find, people that, are willing to meet up and willing to, try new things and hang out and, go on little adventures.
I think that's so important too, because even when it doesn't work out, because I don't know about you, but I'm always telling my kids, or like instilling them, try something new. And it's never a failure because you tried.
Right.
You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Like, it's like, okay, it didn't work out. And I look at it as, when something doesn't work out, okay, well, I have a lesson for next time of, hey, I could do this different. Or you know what? Maybe it's just it didn't work out and I was brave and I still accomplished something. I still tried something new. I was still brave. I still tried.
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
we want to, gentle parent our children without gentle parenting ourselves. We don't, um, we give them a message, but we struggle with taking in the same message, so that's absolutely correct.
Yeah. No, I was talking to somebody yesterday about having to almost like reparent myself while parenting my kids with the gentle parenting, because it's like somebody spills coffee, like my coffee or milk, and I just have to take a second because I'm like, okay, is this going to be the thing that makes me fly off the handle and makes my kid have a bad day, or can I take a breath and they can help me clean it up? So
Right, right. Yeah, for sure.
it's just so important. So another thing I wanted to ask you about was resources, and I know you sent me some, and I will link them in the show notes for people to check out. But do you have any you want to talk about? I know we talked about 1,000 hours outside a little bit.
Yeah, so there is a book that did shape my life, change my life a little bit. It really shifted my perspective on a few things that I was struggling with my older two when they played, kind of like they'd act out these like elaborate scenes. They'd always pick up a stick, they'd like start sword fighting. I'd be like, oh my god, somebody's gonna poke your eye out. But there's a book called Outdoor Kids in an Inside World by Stephen Ranella. And he touches upon the book is like a comprehensive, source of knowledge, but he touches upon, biological instincts to play in certain ways, particularly for kids to play outside and to act out different scenes and to, run around with sticks and be loud and be crazy and basically be everything that like we were told not to be. And
Yes.
it
Oh
really
my gosh.
shifted my perspective on it. So I totally recommend that book because it really, really changed the way I thought about things.
And I heard something the other day. I can't remember whose podcast I think it was Oh Crap Parenting by Jamie, and I can't say her last name. The same lady who does the Oh Crap potty training.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was talking about how kids now, there's no like safe, risky play because we're always like, oh, you're gonna poke your eye, and then when they get older, she's like, I think her kid's like 17 or something. And she's like, yeah, all of his friends are scared to drive. Would you ever imagine that we would grow up with teenagers being scared to drive? Because we're so like, we're sheltering them so much that they feel like they can't take risk. And I think it's a balance, right? We don't want to just like throw them to the wolves.
Right, right. You're right. Yeah.
But we need to allow them. And I have to catch myself because I don't know about you. I have pretty bad anxiety. Like I'm literally medicated for it. And even even with the Zoloft, I still struggle because I'm like, if my kid's climbing, I'm just like, sometimes I just have to like sit on my hands and just like bite my tongue and just like just watch. And because and it's nothing. I mean, obviously, if they're running out into the street, we're going to grab them, right? But if they're climbing on the swing set and it's high up and you're worried they're going to fall, I had to stop like swooping in.
Right. Yeah. And it's definitely something, especially being outside, something that you kind of fight your instinct on because you want to keep them safe, but at the same time, like they have to learn their limits, their boundaries, their balance. And I've read other pieces of literature that have talked about problems that kids are now having with their proprioceptive senses and their vestibular senses and their eyesight from being inside and being on a screen and not experiencing the depth of the 3D world outside.
Oh, wow. That's super
So
interesting.
yeah, so I think that's in the other book I said Glow Kids. I can't remember who writes that. And that, there's a lot of, you take everything with a grain of salt. But there's some very important information about, development, physical development, because, if you're seeing something flat, you're not being fully exposed to the immersive experience. And it can harm your senses and your, body development. But I do think that my kids, we traveled for Thanksgiving, and we made 3 different stops, where we got out of the car and hiked in a natural area. And I had said to my husband, I'm like, wow, like this is pretty cool. Like we open the car doors, the kids jump out, and they feel so comfortable just like existing outside. And I remember as a kid, like I didn't even want to like walk barefoot in grass, like I didn't even want, like I
Ew,
was like,
bugs, ew,
yeah,
dirt.
bugs, and like,
Yes.
I don't want anything touching me. And I'm like, and here, the 3-year-olds running up the trail, 5-year-olds climbing on a giant rock, and then, we had like a little bit of a more challenging hike, and it was just amazing to see how well adjusted they've become, because they know this as their life, and my 7-year-old was like, hey, can we stay here? And I'm like, no, buddy, like we still have like 4 more hours in the car, like we have to go. And
Can
he's
we
like,
stay?
no, he's like, this is so fun. He's like, this is the best place ever. And I'm like, how cool is that? Like that's just
I
like a
love
cool
that.
feeling,
Well,
seeing
yeah.
seeing that with your kids.
Well, and because there's a lot of screens now, and I'm not going to throw shade to any mom that decides to do screen time, because there's been plenty of times where I just throw on the TV, but usually that's for background noise. My kids don't even pay attention to it.
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, it's truly amazing. And I will tell you, yesterday my kids were flipping bananas, like bouncing off the literal wall. And it was raining in the beginning of the day, and it was cold or something. And um I took a mommy minute.
Yeah.
And my friend picked me up and we got a pedicure, but my husband took them outside, and he goes, I came back. I'm like, oh, wow. Like, he's like, I noticed a difference in their mood as soon as I brought them outside, because the sun had come out. It was, I was like, wow, it's so profound. And I've always heard too, as a mom, if your kids won't settle down, take them outside or put them in the bathtub, put them in
Yes.
water. And
Yes.
it's crazy how it works, but it does.
It does, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Is there anything else that we maybe didn't touch on that you want to share before we sign off?
Yes, actually I do. One more thing. So I found that a lot of people will, like, once they get started going outside, or doing the 1,000 hours outside challenge, they'll be really exhausted. I've found that friends of mine, other moms say like, oh well, anything that tires out my kids will also tire me out. And that, there's truth in that, but what I've found is, if I reframe the concept of rest, like if I had to tell myself, having 4 kids under the age of 7, that not all rest for me is sleep. Rest can be something else. Like going out into the woods with your kids could be rest. And it's like, my feet were killing me the other day from walking on these rocks up this, like the side of this like stream that like went up to this cave. And I'm like, okay, but that was restful for me. Even
Mm-hmm.
though like my body is tired, like that was a sort of like peace and, rejuvenation that I needed. Probably more than them, after being like overstimulated from like the holiday, being stuck in a
Right.
car, stuck in traffic, like, so not all not all rest is sleep, and you can rest, around your kids. You can like recharge when they are outside. Like it is not as draining as it needs to be.
I love that too. And I was thinking when you were saying that sometimes rest is putting down the phone or the screen, because I sometimes will just doom scroll, as they call it.
Right, right.
And if my kids are outside and I'm playing with them and interacting with them, that even though it does tire your body out, it like awakens your mind, I guess. Like, I know
Yeah.
it sounds so cheesy, right? But it, like, you know, it does. It really, like, that's the kind of self-care. It's a form of self-care. And, you know, not all self-care is going to get a pedicure. Like, could that be your self-care? Yes. But that's, you know, for your mental health, going outside.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was so awesome. I can't wait for everybody to hear um, all this awesome advice about how to get started going outside and what it truly has, how it's transformed your family.
Yes. Thank you so much. It was so great to talk to you.
It
Thank you,
was.
Kate.
If you made it this far, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Mom Life Unscripted, the podcast show that normalizes everyday struggles of motherhood without being a Debbie Downer or using toxic positivity. If you like this episode, please be sure to rate and review the podcast and subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And don't forget to grab your free resource linked in the show notes below, 10 quick and easy steps to avoid mom burnout. See you next time.